The Zexari ships appeared in the sky over the human settlement on Proxima b every 30 days. Their massive hulls blocked the light from the red dwarf star, casting long shadows across the buildings below. Today was inspection day, and everyone knew to be visible, compliant, and respectful. Kevin Hayes stood at attention in the town square, his commander's uniform pressed perfectly. He watched as the Zexari transport descended, its engines humming with a sound that always made his teeth. After 5 years as the settlement leader, he had learned to hide his fear and disgust behind a mask of calm efficiency. "Remember," he said quietly to the line of officials beside him. "Eyes down. Speak only when spoken to." Olivia West nodded, slightly, her medical officer badge gleaming in the dim light. Her husband Paul squeezed her hand briefly before stepping back to his position among the science team. Their son Charlie stood with the other children, all dressed in the blue uniforms, the Zexari required for human young. The transport doors opened with a hiss and 3 Zexari emerged. They stood nearly 9 feet tall, their scaled bodies covered by ornate armor that shimmered with embedded technology. 4 of their 6 limbs ended in clawed hands, while the lowest pair were used for walking. Their faces were flat, with 4 black eyes arranged in a diamond pattern around a small mouth filled with needle-like teeth. High Commander Vexthar stepped forward, his armor more elaborate than his guards. The translator device on his chest crackled to life. "Major Hayes, your production reports are below expected output." The voice from the translator was flat and mechanical, but the threat behind the words was clear. Kevin bowed his head. "High Commander, we experienced equipment failures in the eastern mining sector. The replacement parts you provided were incompatible with our systems." Vexithar's upper limbs twitched in what the humans had learned was a sign of irritation. "Incompatible? Your engineers lack proper skills. We will send Zexari technicians to oversee operations. They will require housing and provisions." Kevin knew what this meant. Less space, less food for his people, and constant surveillance by Zexari who enjoyed reminding humans of their place. "As you wish, High Commander. We are grateful for your assistance." Behind him, someone made a small noise, quickly silenced. Kevin didn't turn around. Showing any reaction could make things worse. Vexthar moved through the square, inspecting the lined-up humans like cattle. He stopped at the children's group, where 8-year-old Charlie West stood perfectly still, as his parents had taught him. "This one has grown," Vexthar said, pointing at Charlie with a clawed finger. "Approaching usefulness." Olivia's breath caught in her throat, but she remained outwardly calm. The Zexari sometimes took older children to work in their orbital facilities. Few returned. "He is still being educated, High Commander," Kevin said carefully. "His cognitive development is not complete." Vexthar made a clicking sound. "Humans, mature slowly. Inefficient design." He moved on, and Olivia released her breath slowly. After the inspection, the settlement leaders gathered in the administration building. Only here, in a room specially designed to block surveillance, could they speak freely. "They're going to take more of our minerals and send fewer supplies in return," Paul West said, running his hands through his thinning brown hair. "We lost 3 people to malnutrition last month." Kevin nodded grimly. "The Zexari don't care about our survival beyond our usefulness. Right now, we need to focus on hiding more of our harvest before they do their resource count tomorrow." Olivia opened a small device disguised as a medical scanner. "I recorded the entire inspection. That makes 15 documented incidents of threatened removal of children in the past year." She looked at the others. "The Resistance needs this information." The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the rumored human resistance, but speaking of it openly was dangerous. Association with rebels meant immediate execution. "Olivia," Kevin said quietly, "be careful. Those recordings could get all of us killed." She met his eyes steadily. "Doing nothing will kill us slowly instead. My parents told me about Earth before the Zexari came. Humans weren't made to live like this." Paul put his hand on his wife's shoulder. "We need to think about Charlie. If they suspect us—" "I am thinking about Charlie," she replied. What kind of life will he have under Zexari rule? Mining until he's worked to death or taken to one of their ships, never to return? Kevin understood her anger. He had been just 18 when the Zexari ships first appeared over Earth 20 years ago. He remembered freedom. Most children in the settlement had never known anything but Zexari dominance. The meeting ended with the usual precautions. They left at different times through different doors, returning to their lives of careful compliance. Later that evening, Charlie sat at the kitchen table in the West family's small home, working on his lessons. The Zexari education program focused on mining techniques, Zexari language, and the history of the benevolent integration of humans into the Imperium. Dad, why did the history lesson say humans asked the Zexari to come to Earth? Charlie asked, looking up from his tablet. Greg's mom said they invaded us. Paul exchanged a glance with Olivia. The official history is simplified, he said, carefully. When you're older, we can talk more about what really happened. But, Charlie, Olivia interrupted gently. Remember what we talked about? Some questions are only for home. With the shields up, she nodded toward the small device in the corner that blocked Zexari surveillance. Charlie nodded. Even at 8, he understood the need for secrets. Can I go see Ben? He got a new GameCube. Be back before dark, Paul said. And Charlie, I know. Don't talk about the wrong things. Charlie rolled his eyes in the universal gesture of children who think their parents worry too much. After he left, Olivia activated her hidden recorder. Journal entry 347. The Zexari showed interest in the children again today. Vexthar specifically noted Charlie's growth. Her voice remained clinical, but her hands trembled. Food supplies are being further reduced. Medical supplies are at critical levels. I've begun cultivating native plants with antibiotic properties, but we need real medicine. Paul watched his wife with concern. One day they'll catch you with that. One day someone will hear it, she replied. Earth is still out there. Not everyone accepted surrender. Outside, the perpetual twilight of Proxima B cast long shadows across the settlement. Charlie ran along the street, avoiding the watchful electronic eyes of Zexari surveillance drones. Other children had developed the same skill, turning it into a game they called Blind Spot. In the distance, the mining facilities operated day and night, extracting the rare minerals the Zexari prized. The adults worked 12-hour shifts, returning exhausted to their homes. The humans of Proxima B lived, but few would call it living. That night, as they did once every month, the settlement leaders received a coded message through the old emergency broadcast system. Just 3 words, but enough to keep hope alive. Earth still stands. Kevin Hayes, alone in his small office, allowed himself a brief, genuine smile before deleting the message. The Zexari believed they had conquered humanity through fear. Someday, they would learn their mistake. The Compliance Festival happened once a year. The Zexari required all humans to gather in the main square and show their loyalty. Colorful banners with Zexari symbols hung from every building. Guards stood at every corner, their weapons visible. Charlie, West fidgeted in his blue uniform. How much longer? He whispered to his friend Ben. Shh, Ben replied. My dad says we need to be extra quiet today. The children stood in neat rows behind the adults. From his spot, Charlie could barely see the large platform where High Commander Vexisthar would soon appear. The son of Proxima. B cast a reddish glow over everything, making the Zexari banners look like they were covered in blood. Olivia glanced back at her son, giving him a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. Next to her, Paul stood stiffly, his face carefully blank. They had practiced their expressions in the mirror that morning. Not too happy, not too sad, just properly grateful to their Zexari rulers. Kevin Hayes walked to the center of the square. Attention! Present yourselves for inspection! Everyone straightened as the Zexari transport descended from the sky. 6 guards exited first, their armor gleaming. Then High Commander Vexthar emerged, wearing ceremonial armor with glowing symbols. 2 more Zexari followed, carrying a large container between them. Today we celebrate 5 years of productive operation on this outpost, Vexthar announced, through his translator. The Imperium recognizes your adequate service. The container was opened to reveal food packages, real meat and fruits from Earth, luxuries the colonists rarely saw. There were also medical supplies and children's learning. Tablets. These gifts were part of the yearly ritual, designed to remind humans of their dependence on Zexari generosity. Step forward to receive your allotment, Vexthar commanded. The humans lined up in order of rank. Kevin first, then Olivia as medical officer, followed by other officials. Regular workers and their families would come last. The process would take hours, and everyone was expected to show proper gratitude for each item given. Charlie watched the slow-moving line with growing boredom. The adults had explained why they needed to stand still and be patient, but it was hard for an 8-year-old. His attention wandered to the Zexari ship. Unlike the usual transport vessels, this ceremonial ship was decorated with intricate patterns. Its hull shimmered with colors that seemed to move. Charlie had never seen anything so interesting, Ben, he whispered. Look at that ship. But Ben had moved forward with his family to receive their allotment. Charlie looked around and realized he was momentarily unwatched. The adults were focused on the distribution, and the other children were either in line or standing obediently. Without really deciding to, Charlie took a few steps sideways, then a few more. He moved slowly toward the edge of the square where he could get a better view of the Zexari ship. He just wanted to look at it up close, maybe see how those colors moved across the surface. The ship sat in a cleared area beyond the square. As Charlie approached, he could see symbols etched into its surface, similar to the ones on Vexithar's armor but much more complex. He reached out a hand, not quite touching. It looks like it's alive, he murmured to himself. Human child. Step. Away from the sacred vessel. The harsh electronic voice made Charlie jump. He turned to see a Zexari guard rushing toward him, all 4 upper limbs raised in alarm. Charlie froze, suddenly aware he had made a terrible mistake. I'm sorry. I was just looking, he said, backing away. But it was too late. The commotion had drawn attention from the square. People turned to look, and a ripple of fear passed through the crowd as they spotted Charlie near the ship. High Commander Vexthar moved with surprising speed for his size. He pushed past the humans in his way, his 4 eyes fixed on Charlie. Who dares approach the ceremonial vessel of the ancestors? He demanded, his translator making the words sound even more threatening. Charlie tried to speak, but no words came out. He looked desperately toward the crowd, trying to find his parents. Olivia spotted her son and gasped. Charlie! She pushed forward, but Paul grabbed her arm. Wait, he whispered urgently. Don't make it worse. Vexthar reached Charlie and towered over him. This human young has violated sacred space. Explain yourself, creature. Charlie's voice shook. I'm sorry, I just wanted to see the colors. They're pretty. A murmur went through the Zexari guards. Vexthar's upper limbs twitched violently. Pretty? The translator couldn't fully convey the outrage in his voice. The ancestral markings are not for human eyes. They are sacred symbols of the Imperium's divine right to rule. Kevin Hayes pushed his way to the front of the crowd. High Commander, please. The child meant no disrespect. He's young and doesn't understand our customs. Your customs? Vexthar turned to Kevin. They are not your customs, human. They are laws set by your betters, which you have failed to teach. You're young. Olivia finally broke free from Paul's grip and rushed forward. Please, he's my son. I'll punish him appropriately. He won't do it again. Vexithar ignored her. From his armor, he removed a ceremonial energy weapon, a short staff that glowed with the same shifting colors as the ship. The law is clear. Those who defile sacred objects must be purified. The crowd fell silent. Even the Zexari guards seemed taken aback. This weapon was meant for rituals, not punishment. No, Olivia screamed, lunging forward. 2 guards grabbed her. Paul tried to reach her, but was held back by more guards. Charlie stood alone, trembling before the towering alien. I'm sorry, he whispered again. The young must learn, Vexthar said, and before anyone could move, he activated the energy staff. A pulse of light erupted from the weapon. It struck Charlie in the chest, lifting his small body off the ground before he fell in a crumpled heap. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then Olivia's scream tore through the air, a sound of such pure anguish that several humans and even some Zexari flinched. She broke free from the guards and ran to her son, gathering his limp body in her arms. Charlie, please. Paul reached them seconds later, falling to his knees beside his wife and son. His hands shook as he touched Charlie's face. Kevin. Hayes stood frozen, his commander's mask finally broken. Around him, the humans of the settlement stared in horror. Vexthar deactivated his weapon and returned it to his armor. "The ceremony will continue," he announced. "Return to your positions." But no one moved. The humans stood still, their eyes fixed on the small family huddled on the ground. "I said return to your positions," Vexthar repeated, his translator crackling with anger. Slowly, reluctantly, people began to move back into their lines. But something had changed. Their eyes no longer looked down in submission. They looked at each other, sharing a silent communication that had never been there before. Kevin Hayes finally stepped forward. "Yes, High Commander. The ceremony will continue." His voice was steady, but his eyes, when they met Olivia's, held something new. Rage. "The burial was quick and silent. The Zexari didn't allow large gatherings outside of approved events, so only immediate family could attend." Olivia and Paul stood by the small grave as the settlement's pastor said a few quiet words. Kevin Hayes stood nearby, his face like stone. "The Zexari said we have 1 hour," the pastor whispered, looking nervously at the surveillance drone hovering overhead. Olivia didn't respond. She hadn't spoken since Charlie's death 3 days ago. She stared at the small mound of dirt, her medical recorder clutched tightly in her hand. When the brief ceremony ended, Kevin approached them. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice barely audible. "This should never have happened." Paul nodded, his arm around his wife's shoulders. "Thank you for coming. Can you both meet me tonight?" "My office after work shift. Tell no one." Kevin walked away without waiting for an answer. That night, Paul guided Olivia through the dark streets. The settlement was quiet after curfew. Breaking curfew meant punishment, but they moved carefully, avoiding the regular patrol routes. Kevin's office was in the administration building. He let them in through a side door and led them to the surveillance-free room where the leaders sometimes met. Inside, they found 2 people they didn't expect. Ben's father, Alan Murphy, who worked in communications, and Susan Lee, who ran the hydroponics farm. "Thank you for coming," Kevin said. "What I'm about to say could get us all killed." He pressed a button, activating the room's security measures. "But after what happened to Charlie, I can't stay silent anymore." Paul helped Olivia to a seat. "What is this about?" "Resistance," Kevin said simply. "Real resistance, not just small acts of defiance." Alan stepped forward. 3 days ago, I received this." He held up a small device. "It's a quantum encrypted communicator. We're not alone out here." He activated the device, and a voice filled the room. "Settlement Proxima B, this is Commander Liu of the Earth Resistance Fleet. We've received your transmissions documenting Zexari atrocities. The death of the child Charles West has been shared across all human colonies. We are no longer alone in our fight. Other species have reached out. The time to act is coming." Olivia spoke for the first time in days. "You sent my recordings." Alan nodded. "Every log you made, every incident you documented. We've been building a case for years, trying to show the rest of humanity what really happens here." "Earth still has ships?" Paul asked, surprised. "The Zexari told us they destroyed all our fleets." "They lied," Kevin said. "Earth surrendered to prevent planetary bombardment, but many ships escaped. They've been hiding, building, planning. And they're not the only ones. The Keldari, the Novans, other species under Zexari control have been watching and waiting too." Susan spoke up. "The rebellion needs more than just proof of Zexari cruelty. They need information about Zexari weaknesses, patrol schedules, communication systems." You want us to spy, Paul said. I want us to fight back, Kevin replied. But yes, information comes first. Olivia stood suddenly. Show me the message again. Her voice was steady now, her eyes clear. Alan replayed the transmission. Charlie's death was recorded, she said, by me, and now everyone knows. She turned to Kevin. What do you need me to do? Over the next weeks, the small resistance cell grew carefully. Each new member was chosen based on complete trust. They worked in pairs, gathering information and sending it through Alan's hidden communicator. Paul, who worked in the science division, mapped the Zexari power grid. Susan tracked food shipments and identified vulnerabilities in the supply chain. Kevin documented troop movements and weapons storage. Olivia returned to work at the medical center, her grief now hidden behind a mask of submission. But she watched and listened as Zexari came for treatment, learning about their biology, their weaknesses. Their nervous system is concentrated in their upper torso, she told the group during one meeting. And they have poor vision in low light. Their body temperature runs much higher than ours. Useful, Kevin nodded. The resistance fleet is gathering information from all settlements. The Novans have shared technical specifications for Zexari ships. 1 month after Charlie's death, something unexpected happened. A Zexari transport arrived outside the regular schedule. The humans watched nervously as it landed near the administration building. Special inspection, the guards announced. All humans remain in dwellings. From his window, Paul watched as a tall Zexari in elaborate green armor exited the transport. That's not one of the usual officials, he whispered to Olivia. Kevin called an emergency meeting that night. That was Inspector Malcor from the central government. They're investigating the increased communications they've detected. Did they trace it to us? Susan asked, fear in her voice. Not yet. But they're suspicious. We need to be more careful. Kevin looked grim. And we need to accelerate our plans. The Earth fleet is moving. They'll reach our sector in 3 months. 3 months? Paul shook his head. We can't hold out that long if the Zexari are watching us closely. We don't have a choice, Kevin replied. But we're not alone anymore. He activated the communicator, showing them a new message. On the small screen appeared the face of a Keldari, a species with smooth blue skin and large eyes. Humans of Proxima B, the Keldari said in slightly accented English. I am Varan, leader of the Keldari resistance on your moon. We too have suffered under Zexari rule. We too have lost our children to their cruelty. The death of your young one has reached even us. We offer our alliance. Olivia moved closer to the screen. They know about Charlie? Alan nodded. His name has become a symbol, not just for humans but for all species fighting the Zexari. The next day, High Commander Vexthar called for Kevin. When Kevin returned to the resistance meeting that night, his face was bruised. They're cracking down. More inspections, more restrictions. They know something is happening. He winced as Olivia examined his injuries. Vexthar accused me of planning rebellion. I denied everything, of course. Did he believe you? Paul asked. No, but he can't prove anything yet. They're bringing in more troops next week. Kevin looked at each of them. We need to move our timeline up. I've contacted Commander Liu. The fleet will send advanced scouts to help us prepare. Olivia finished, treating Kevin's face. When? 2 weeks. We need to be ready to move when they arrive. Kevin looked at her. Are you sure you want to continue? The risk is growing. Olivia touched the small locket around her neck, which now held a lock of Charlie's hair. My son died because he looked at something beautiful, because he was curious, because he was human. Her voice was soft but firm. If we don't fight now, more children will die. Paul took her hand. We'll be ready. As they left the meeting, moving carefully through the shadows of the settlement, Olivia looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, ships were moving. People were planning. Species were uniting. All because of one small boy who had wanted to see pretty colors on a ship. They ruled by fear, she whispered to herself. But they killed the wrong child. The scouts arrived in the middle of the night. 3 small ships landed silently in the forest beyond the settlement perimeter. Kevin and Alan were waiting at the arranged meeting point, hidden from Zexari surveillance. 4 humans emerged from the lead ship dressed in dark combat gear. Their leader approached, hand extended. "Major Hayes, I'm Captain Riley Jones, Earth Resistance Fleet." Kevin shook his hand. "Thank you for coming. We don't have much time. The Zexari have doubled their patrol since the inspector arrived. We know. Our ships detected the increased activity." Riley gestured to her team. "We brought supplies and weapons. Not enough for a full rebellion yet, but enough to defend yourselves when the time comes." They moved the supplies quickly, hiding them in an abandoned mining tunnel Kevin had prepared. Riley examined the settlement maps and the information the Resistance had gathered. "This is good work," she said. "Especially the medical data about Zexari vulnerabilities." Dr. West gathered most of that, Alan explained. "She's been taking risks since—" He didn't finish the sentence. Riley nodded solemnly. "We've all seen the recording of what happened to her son. It's been shared across every human settlement. Even some of our Keldari allies have broadcast it in their territories." "What about the fleet?" Kevin asked. "When will they arrive?" 3 weeks, maybe 4. They're gathering ships from other resistance cells. The Novans have joined with their fighters and even some Tressian scout vessels." Riley looked at Kevin. "This isn't just about Proxima B anymore. Charlie West's death was the catalyst many species needed. The Zexari Empire is facing coordinated rebellion across multiple sectors." The next morning, High Commander Vexithar called for an emergency assembly. All humans were required to attend. Armed guards surrounded the square more than usual. "Dangerous elements have been detected in this settlement," Vexithar announced. "Traitors who communicate with enemies of the Imperium." The humans stood silently, their faces carefully blank. "These traitors will be found and punished," Vexithar continued. "Until then, new security measures will be implemented." He listed the new restrictions: a stricter curfew, regular home inspections, limited movement between work areas, reduced communication privileges. Then he did something unexpected. He displayed a holographic image above the square. It was Charlie West. "This human young violated sacred space and was rightfully punished," Vexithar said. "Now his image is being used by rebels to incite unrest. Anyone found possessing or distributing this image will be executed, along with their family unit." Olivia stared at the floating image of her son, her hands clenched at her sides. Paul stood beside her, barely breathing. "To demonstrate the consequences of rebellion," Vexithar continued, "we will now administer justice to suspected collaborators." Guards brought forward 3 humans from the crowd. One was an older man who worked in the communication center. Another was a young woman from the farming sector, and the third was Susan Lee from the hydroponics farm. Kevin felt his blood run cold. Susan was part of their resistance cell. Had she been caught? Would she reveal the others under torture? "These humans have been observed engaging in suspicious activities," Vexithar announced. "They will serve as examples." Without further ceremony, the guards activated their energy weapons. The 3 humans fell to the ground, their bodies convulsing before going still. The crowd remained silent, but the atmosphere had changed. Fear still hung in the air, but now it mixed with something else, a simmering rage that even the Zexari could sense. Vexithar scanned the crowd, his 4 eyes narrowing. "Return to your assigned duties. Increased production quotas will be announced tomorrow." As the humans dispersed, Kevin noticed something strange. The Zexari guards were watching each other almost as carefully as they watched the humans. Some seemed uneasy, their upper limbs twitching nervously. That night, despite the increased patrols, the resistance leaders met in the secure room. Susan's death had shaken them all. "They're getting desperate," Alan said. "Susan wasn't caught doing anything. They're just killing people to scare us." "It won't work anymore," Olivia said quietly. "Not after Charlie. Not after today." Kevin shared what he had observed about the guards. "I think some of the Zexari are questioning Vexthar's methods. The excessive punishment, using Charlie's image as a threat, it's causing division in their ranks. We can use that, Paul suggested. If we can identify which guards are uncomfortable with the killings, maybe we can turn them, or at least ensure they look the other way when the time comes. The scouts brought enough weapons for 30 people, Kevin said. We need to choose carefully who we arm first. Olivia spoke up, her voice stronger than it had been since Charlie's death. I want to show you something. She activated her medical recorder and projected a small hologram on the table. It showed the interior of the Zexari command center, including their communication systems and security controls. How did you get this? Kevin asked, amazed. I treated a guard for heat exhaustion. Their recording devices are in their armor. I borrowed his while he was sedated. A small, grim smile appeared on her face. He never noticed. Kevin studied the images. This is exactly what we need. With this, we can disable their communications when the fleet arrives. There's more, Olivia continued. The Inspector Malcor isn't just here about rebel communications. He's investigating Vexithar. What? Alan leaned forward. Why? Apparently killing children is considered excessive even by Zexari standards, especially during a ceremonial event. Some of the guards filed complaints with the central government. Olivia's voice was bitter. Not because they care about human life, but because it was ritually inappropriate and has caused unrest in other settlements. This news changed everything. If Vexthar was being investigated by his own government, his position might be weaker than they thought. The next day, Kevin was summoned to meet with Inspector Malcor. He entered the command center, careful to maintain his submissive posture. Malcor was alone, his green armor gleaming under the lights. Unlike Vexthar, he spoke directly rather than through a translator. Major Hayes, he said in heavily accented English. I wish to discuss recent events without High Commander Vexthar present. Kevin bowed slightly. How may I assist you, Inspector? The death of the human young during the sacred ceremony has caused complications. Other settlements report increased resistance activities. Even non-human species speak of this incident. Kevin said nothing, waiting. The High Command questions whether Vexthar's methods are effective. Malcor's 4 eyes studied Kevin carefully. What do you know of rebel communications from this settlement? It was a dangerous moment. Kevin chose his words carefully. I ensure all official communications follow approved protocols, Inspector. If rebels exist, they operate without my knowledge. Malcor made a clicking sound that might have been skepticism. The execution of 3 humans yesterday, was it justified? It is not my place to question Zexari justice, Kevin replied, the practiced words tasting like ash in his mouth. Indeed. Malcor turned away. You may go. But be warned, Major Hayes. When Imperial powers struggle against each other, those caught between often suffer most. As Kevin left the command center, he realized what was happening. The Zexari Empire was not as united as they pretended to be. Charlie's death had exposed cracks not just between the oppressed species and their rulers, but within the Empire itself. He had to tell the others. The time for their move was approaching faster than they had planned. The fleet arrived sooner than expected. The settlement was woken by the sound of Zexari alarm systems blaring across the compound. Kevin rushed to his window and looked up. The sky was filled with ships, human vessels mixed with the distinctive, curved shapes of Keldari fighters and the sharp angles of Novan attack craft. His communication device buzzed. It was Riley. It's happening now. The Zexari detected our main fleet approaching the system. We've moved up the timeline. Get your people ready. Kevin sent the alert to all Resistance members. They had planned for this moment, distributing the hidden weapons, assigning targets, preparing safe areas for non-combatants. Now it was time. Paul helped Olivia strap on body armor that the scouts had provided. Stay with the medical team, he urged her. They'll need you. Olivia checked her weapon, her face set with determination. The Zexari will head for the command. Center first. That's where I need to be. Olivia, please. Their medical data is stored there, she said firmly. And I promised Charlie. Paul knew there was no changing her mind. Then I'm coming with you. Outside, chaos had erupted. The Zexari guards were rushing to defensive positions as ships descended toward the settlement. Humans were emerging from their homes, some running for cover, others moving with purpose toward predetermined targets. Kevin met Alan at the communication center. Status? Riley's team has disabled the main Zexari transmitter on the outskirts. They can't call for reinforcements. Alan handed Kevin a weapon. Inspector Malcor was seen heading to the command center. Vexthar is already there. Kevin nodded grimly. Then that's where we're going. Across the settlement, the resistance fighters moved into position. Years of living under Zexari rule had taught them patience and stealth. Now they used those skills to outmaneuver their oppressors. The first shots were fired at the armory, where a team led by Ben's father had trapped a group of Zexari guards. The energy weapons the scouts had provided were designed to target the Zexari's specific biology, exploiting the weaknesses Olivia had discovered. In the sky above, the battle raged between the Allied fleet and the Zexari defense ships. Explosions lit up the morning like artificial suns. Olivia and Paul made their way toward the command center, using the chaos as cover. They met Kevin and Alan at the service entrance. The access code I got from the guard's armor should work, Olivia said, entering the sequence into the panel. The door slid open. Inside, the command center was in turmoil. Zexari officers rushed between stations trying to coordinate their defenses. In the center of the room stood Vexthar, shouting orders. Beside him was Inspector Malcor, his posture radiating tension. The humans moved quietly along the outer wall using the consoles as cover. Their target was the main security system that controlled the settlement's defenses. There, Olivia pointed to a large control panel. That's the neural interface for the security grid. Kevin looked at each of his companions. Ready? They nodded, and as one they emerged from hiding, weapons raised. Step away from the controls, Kevin ordered. The Zexari officers froze, then reached for their weapons, but the humans fired first using the targeted energy weapons. 3 officers fell immediately. Vexithar spun around, his 4 eyes widening at the sight of the armed humans. Traitors, he snarled through his translator. No, Kevin replied. Freedom fighters. More shots were exchanged. Paul was hit in the shoulder but kept firing. Alan made it to the security console and began entering the override codes the scouts had provided. Olivia faced Vexthar directly, her weapon aimed at his chest where she knew his primary nervous system was located. You killed my son, she said, her voice steady. Vexthar recognized her then. The mother of the young who defiled the sacred vessel. His upper limbs twitched in what might have been amusement. One human child is nothing compared to the might of the Imperium. You're wrong, Olivia replied. That one child united every species you've ever oppressed. His name is known across the stars now. Charlie West, the human child whose death ended your empire. Before Vexthar could respond, Inspector Malcor stepped forward. The human speaks truth, High Commander. Your excessive action violated not only our protocols but our honor. The High Council has deemed you unfit for command. Vexthar turned on Malcor in rage. You dare? I have served the Imperium for decades. As his words were cut short as Olivia fired. The energy blast hit Vexthar precisely where she had aimed. He collapsed, his armor smoking. Security systems offline, Alan called. Settlement defenses are down. Kevin activated his communicator. Command center secured. All resistance units proceed with Phase 2. Outside, the Allied ships landed in the main square. Troops poured out, humans in Earth resistance uniforms, blue-skinned Keldari warriors and the tall, slender Novans with their distinctive silver armor. Malcor raised his hands in surrender. The High Council will negotiate, he said. Vexthar's methods were not approved. We can discuss terms. The time for terms set by the Zexari is over, Kevin interrupted. Now you will listen to us. The battle for the settlement was over in less than an hour. Most of the Zexari guards surrendered once they realized their commanders were captured, and reinforcements wouldn't come. The few who resisted were quickly overwhelmed by the combined forces. Riley found Kevin in the command center, reviewing the status reports. Casualties? 7 humans dead, 15 wounded. Could have been much worse. Kevin looked at the displays showing the settlement. What about the fleet? We've taken control of the orbital platforms. The Zexari reinforcement ships tried to jump in system but were met by our Novan allies. Riley smiled grimly. This settlement is free, Major Hayes. In the medical center, Olivia treated the wounded, human, Keldari, and even some Zexari guards. Paul sat nearby, his shoulder bandaged. What happens now? He asked when she took a break. Now we rebuild. Create something better than what the Zexari forced on us. Olivia looked out the window at the allied ships in the square. Charlie would have loved seeing all these different species working together. The next day, a memorial service was held in the main square. Representatives from all the allied species gathered around a simple stone marker. Engraved upon it was Charlie West's name, and below it, words in multiple languages. He showed us that curiosity and wonder cannot be ruled by fear. Kevin Hayes, now recognized as the settlement's official leader, spoke to the assembled crowd. Today marks the beginning of a new era, not just for this settlement, but for all people who have lived under Zexari oppression. What started here has spread across the stars. Rebellions have broken out in 12 sectors. The Zexari Empire is collapsing. He gestured to the representatives of the various species. Together, we will build something better, a union based on respect, not fear, on cooperation, not domination. Olivia and Paul stood in the front row, hands clasped tightly. Above them, the red sun of Proxima b shone down on ships from a dozen worlds, ships that had come because of one small boy who dared to approach a beautiful ship with wonder instead of fear. He would have loved this, Paul whispered. Olivia nodded, tears in her eyes but a smile on her face. Yes, he would have had so many questions about all these new friends. In orbit above the planet, the Zexari command ship sent its final transmission to the Imperium homeworld. We ruled by fear. We were defeated by hope.